Right, and the syllabus, the way we are moving, I think in Nasi Tombotora a break. Tomboito just any country of your choice. Is it in syllabus? What would you like us to study about?
Jamaica, say.
Richard, Jamaica. All right, let's get into Jamaica. Okay, let's talk about Jamaica. Where do we start from? Let's start from initial inhabitants or early inhabitants, right? So around 800 AD, we have people living there who are called the Taino people. So these Taino people, maybe before I go there, Jamaica, Cynthia, Africa, Jamaica is not in Africa. So Jamaica is part of the Caribbean islands that are, if we have South America here, and Brazil, Argentina, we have the Caribbean islands that are dotted around here. And West Indies, West Indies is not a country, but it's a collection of 13 island countries. Okay? So Jamaica happens to be one of those Caribbean islands along the Caribbean Ocean. So anyway, in 1800 AD, we have the Taino people who occupied the place, and they called it Jamaica. Jamaica. And this simply means land of wood and water. So already you can see Jamaica. So now moving forward, we then come to 1494. In the year 1494, there is this guy who comes here. Are we together? There's this guy who comes here who's called Christopher Columbus. I have heard some of you think Christopher Columbus was a great man. Great? I don't know. We'll talk about him another day. So a lot of people think that this guy was Spanish. But this guy was not Spanish. Christopher Columbus was actually an Italian man. Okay? He was an Italian man, but because his sails, his voyages, and all his explorations were funded by the Spanish monarchy. So a lot of people end up confusing Christopher Columbus and Spanish, but it was actually Italian. So he arrived, right? And then so anyway, he came. Spain is now occupying Jamaica. So obviously now you can imagine with the Spanish and Taino language and this and that, Jamaica. This was just their interpretation or translation or mispronunciation of the name Jamaica. So it's now called Jamaica, land of wood and water. So now what is happening also is that as Spain arrives around the 1500s, the Taino people started dying. The Taino people started dying because of brutal force yaishandiswa nemaSpanish kuti vavashandire, because vakabva vatotanga kuvatora sema-slaves, vatoti isusu ndisitava kutonga. Brutal force, and these guys also brought diseases. These Spanish guys, they also brought diseases. So a lot of the Taino people started dying. So moving forward, around the year 1600, now we have slaves that started coming, that were being brought from Central and West Africa. This will also lead you to understand a key thing about language. Because imagine, we have the original Taino inhabitants, we have Africans that are coming not from one country, not from one place, but Central and West African countries, which means we have so many different tribes. You know, Nigeria, we have the Igbo, then also Ghana, we have the Akan, we have the Ashanti, all of these people. These are people who go to purchase. Some Africans are to communicate. Spanish. So you start to get an idea of how their language started developing up until the point where we know it as it is now. Are we together so far? So now, in the year 1655, the English came and captured Jamaica. It's not really that they wanted anything particular in Jamaica, because remember, Jamaica was not gold. But the reason they captured, it's because there was an Anglo-Spanish war that was happening at the time. So there was an Anglo-Spanish war that was happening at the time. So the English were doing this in order to limit Spanish influence. Territory, they are trying to make sure that, are we still following? They are trying to make sure that they limit Spanish influence. So that's why they came and they captured. So it was, so this is 1655. It was a say, no, he was not a say. William Penn in Diakawea, va capture the English of capture the territory. So it was around this time Baka established a city of Port Royal. Port Royal, I want you to go, if you go on Google and you just Google wickedest city on earth, this is the name that will pop up. Port Royal was established, right? Because, and then it became a capital. It was strategic because it was, you know, it was at the harbor, it was at the bay. So ships would be coming there. Then pirates and buccaneers would be coming, and privateers would also be coming there. So the pirates would sometimes, plunder my ships, my Spanish ships, so people are there. There is a lot of gambling going on. There's a lot of gambling going on. There's a lot of alcoholism. There's a lot of prostitution that was happening in Port Royal. It became the wickedest city on earth. At some point, it is reported that every building that was in Port Royal was a brothel. That's how bad it was. But then what happens on June 6, 1692? What happens in June 6? June 6, 1692. The disaster struck. There was an earthquake that hit the city of Port Royal, and it killed 1/3 of the population that was there instantly. It was subsequently followed by fires that broke out, and also by a hurricane. To the point that some people actually believe that this was judgment and punishment from God because of the evil. That's when the merchants and all of those guys, they decided to then move their capital to Kingston, which is also the current capital. Right. So in 1700, we can say in the 1700s, there was a sugar boom. The English are now running things. There is a sugar boom and they're exporting sugar. They are still using slave labor. Right? They are using slave labor. And then they are exporting sugar. They are also making these guys work on cocoa plantations. So that you can imagine, their ships are bringing in slaves and exporting sugar. So now this became a very lucrative, colony of the British people. They are using slave labor. They're exporting sugar. They are also farming cocoa. But what was happening on the sides is we have what are known as the Maroons. That the English gave came from a Spanish term, cimarroni. Okay? Cimarroni. Cimarroni simply meant one who has run away or a fugitive. Right. So these were people who would have run away or fugitives. So this was the Spanish term for that. So the English are adopting that of what are Cimarroni, Maroon, the Maroons, until they were called the Maroons. So between the period of 1730 to 1740, the Maroons were now protesting and showing resistance until they were granted Maroon autonomy. Now I could recognize. We're moving forward, but it's still the what? It's still the British that are in power. And then in 1760, the Turkey Rebellion. So with the Turkey Rebellion, there is this guy who led the rebellion. Their cries for equality, their cries for justice were being ignored. And then Dogubaba led a rebellion, but it was crushed. This guy was an Ashanti man. He was an Ashanti man. He was of the Ashanti tribe. He was an Ashanti man who was crying for equality and proper justice. But it was crushed severely, and he was also killed. He was executed. That's how the rebellion was crushed in 1760. So until the period of 1830 to around 1831, there happened what was known as the Baptist War. The reason it is called the Baptist, because this one was led by Sam Sharp. It is known as the Baptist War because this guy was a Baptist deacon. He was a Baptist deacon. So he led this rebellion around the time of Christmas. But the rebellion was also crushed, but it facilitated the abolition of slavery. So slavery was abolished in 1834 in the British Empire. Slavery abolished. And then in 1838, the slaves got full emancipation. Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. Bob Marley. So you can see even what influenced some of the songs of the artists later, however, it was deeply rooted in this idea of liberation. Are we together? So now in 1865, the Morant Bay Rebellion. The Morant Bay Rebellion was led by another Baptist deacon as well. Okay? And the Paul Bogo. So now you can see the role that religion is playing. Because you can imagine people are gathering from time to time. Yes, they are slaves. Yes, they are under brutal conditions. But these guys are allowing them to gather and pray together and discuss things. So obviously in fellowship, even in Bible, but it's just so these guys protested as well. Paul Bogo, they protested. He took several hundreds of his followers. Then they started marching. But when the rebellion, when those guys were seen protesting and marching, fire was opened. And those hundreds of people were killed. And he was also instantly punished, executed by hanging. Paul Bogo was only about 40 years of age when he died. But the resistance did not entirely die. The spirit of freedom. So several instrumental characters then started coming in. I'm sure you have heard of Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey was a nationalist. He was mainly focused on the pan-Africanism. Idea on Marcus Garvey, because he lived and worked in the United States and in London. He was an educated and a wealthy guy. But idea is also we have African roots. Let us go back to Africa. So he's one of those key people. Norman Manley is one of the people then who then facilitated a peaceful transition from British power to Jamaican power. So the complexity of the history. We have people from places like Nigeria, Ghana. They are coming to a place that was once a Spanish colony, and which is now a British colony. So you can now. So that's why you will find that when you look at a lot of Jamaicans, a lot of them, they just have English names. English surnames, Anna Bob Marley, Anna Johnson, Anna Chichi, and the like, Anna Kingston, and all of that, because of this. So you can imagine this mixture. We have Spain here, we have Africans here, we have the British here, we also have Irish here. There are some Jamaicans who actually claim to have Irish roots. So their language is not, we don't call it broken English because it is actually Creole. Now Creole change only get developed until it is actually recognized as a language. Though the official language of Jamaica is English, right? The official is English, but so it's still run a parallel with Creole. So basically it was a language that developed over generations and generations of different races and ethnicities that are trying to communicate. Number one, they communicate with slave masters. So they would find a way to simplify the language yavari kunzwa iyo handiti vachibatanidza nemaroots avo iwawa. Ndosaka English inoti where do you come from, handiti Jamaica inenge ichikoti patiwa where I come from. Munhu ari kutira kuda kulimita kuda kutaura zvinhu zvakawanda wanda. Where I come from, mina I go. I will not go, mina I go. Because they are trying to build a bridge. So this is how then Jamaica eventually got its independence on August 6 in the year 1962. Do Jamaica.